Steele dossier, because I think this may be one of the areas where the director is on more firm footing. Here's what she said about that.
The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway.
Now, according to what she's released anyway, apparently Brennan did know that that thing was discredited, what he used, but yet he did push it to try and make Trump look bad. What do you know from your reporting on that issue?
Yeah, this is important. There's a lot of details around it. And let me say at the top, objectively, with history as our guide, looking back, letting the Steele dossier anywhere near the ICA was a terrible political error that undermined a important intelligence document by associating it with a unverified piece of rument. The Steele dossier either was repeating stuff that was widely reported in the news and everybody knew, or had salacious allegations that have never been proven in the subsequent years, right? And you can see from what Tulsi Gabbard has put out and what John Ratcliffe put out, and even, quite frankly, what John Brennan wrote in his book, CIA analysts knew that this was not a piece of serious intelligence. The Steele dossier was written by a former British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele. It was circulating around Washington in 2016. Some journalists had seen it. The FBI got a hold of it. The CIA looked at it and said, "This is just baloney. This is not serious work. We need to distance." Now, James Comey decided that since the FBI knew about this, had the dossier in its hands, they couldn't pretend they didn't have it. They had to let President-elect Trump know they had it, so they didn't look like they were hiding something from him. So Comey was lobbying Brennan very hard to put the reference to the ICA in the document, in an annex at the end. The FBI was, to some degree, taking the thing seriously. The CIA was not. There was a compromise. It was put in as an annex, but as Tulsi Gabbard showed this week, there was a bullet point in the main part that referred you to the annex. Looking back, that was really, really stupid, because this unverified bit of rumor that is not true got placed into this other document, and therefore it undermines that document. I've talked to many people who were involved in the production of this, and they all agree that it was incredibly stupid to let the Steele dossier into this document. I don't know. I do not think, I have not seen evidence that the Steele dossier colored the work of the NSA or the CIA in terms of their analysis. But somebody attached it to the ICA, and that was really, really stupid.
Yeah, because it has definitely undermined its credibility, and then now leads to all kinds of conspiracies that, or suspicions rather, that was primarily the driver, et cetera, that was done intentionally. And then I don't think it's unreasonable to suspect that Brennan didn't push something because he apparently didn't like Trump at all. And so who knows whether that is something that he did intentionally or not. Maybe that's something that needs to be checked out, and whatever else he may have done if he intentionally tried to influence people in a way that he knew wasn't accurate. But that doesn't get us back to where we started, which was, is President Obama guilty of treason? Did he manufacture intelligence? And did he intend to unseat President Trump? I have heard no evidence at all on that. And what the evidence that has been shown shows that he asked very reasonable questions and got the answer back from the experts. And then that was subsequently published. So I totally am missing this. Now, apparently I'm not the only one, because at the question and answer period after that interview yesterday, that press briefing, one of the reporters asked that very question.
The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
That's a really strong charge. Again, she repeats it in there. But Julian, am I missing something somewhere? There seems to be some connective tissue she hasn't provided that shows criminal intent. I just don't see it. How do you read that answer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, President Trump and his allies have long been upset with John Brennan for his outspoken criticism of President Trump during his first term. He was one of the loudest, sharpest critics on MSNBC and other outlets, right? And so I do think a lot of this is anger at how John Brennan characterized and spoke about this. And that does show the danger of someone who has a nonpartisan job, and being head of the CIA or head of the DNI is a job where you're supposed to stay out of politics. And the John Brennan, he was probably acting out of good faith, or but his strong criticism is part of the anger that Republicans have about this document, right? But there is no evidence in the documents that John Ratcliffe has put out. There's no evidence in the documents that DNI Gabbard has put out. There's no evidence in the 2017 report that the House Republicans did, or the bipartisan report that the Senate Democrats and Republicans did together, that there was any manipulation of the intelligence. There's no evidence that the president was asking for an intelligence assessment to change. We've tried to explain to your viewers and listeners here why that is, what the confusion is, why that there's not manipulation, why there's multiple questions being asked. But there's no smoking gun here. There's no even evidence pointing to the president or putting a thumb on the scale. So, she has not made the case yet, and this is one reason you're supposed to stay out of politics.
Right. Well, but let me ask you on the back part there. So there's two separate things involved here in what she said in that last clip. There is that one, that there was a conspiracy to change things, and then the last part there was, though, to have a years-long coup on President Trump. A coup means you're trying to get someone out of power. I haven't even seen the allegations so far, and have you? What does she mean by that? How was any of this supposed to get Trump out of office? That's what a coup is.
Yes, I can't answer that question. I do not know. However, the reason this is being phrased in that way, right, is if you were intending to make a charge against a member of the Obama administration, you cannot use a perjury charge because the statute of limitations is passed. You can't just do a conspiracy charge about the events in December 2016 because that's too far in the past. You have to have ongoing acts. And if you listen to what President Trump said earlier in this week when he was doing one of his famous weaves, and he was weaving from the 2016 intelligence assessment to the 2020 election, where he has said without evidence that there was an attempt to strip him of a victory in 2020, he has linked those things. And so if you want to make a charge of conspiracy, you need to go from 2016 to 2020 or 2021. And so that's why rhetorically we hear public figures making this link. But I see no logical leap, and I certainly see no evidence that ties the intelligence assessment of 2016 to subsequent events in Donald Trump's presidency, and certainly not the 2020 vote.